Welcome to the All We Do Is Talk podcast. I'm here with Isaiah Harris and Christian Cubis. We're here with another NBA episode. They're here to give you a kind of a season review and just trying to figure out, get a state of the address on how the East and West is going. What do we think of the season so far? All that good stuff. How you guys doing?
Good. How y'all doing out there?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Having a good day.
All right. So for this show, we're gonna do our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments from each conference, East and West. Who wants to get it going?
I guess we'll start in the better conference. For the
Eastern
first time
Conference.
in what seems like 15 years.
19 of the last 20 years, the West has finished with a better record versus the East.
Yeah, this is a different Eastern Conference. Now, luckily for the West, there are two teams that are just carrying the load and getting, accounting for most of the wins. But this Eastern Conference is
the two best
clearly
records in
better.
the league are in the West because they're just eating up on all the bottom teams. All right, so we're gonna start off this segment with our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments. One for each of us for each conference. Isaiah, get us going. Who do you think's your biggest surprise out of the East?
So my biggest surprise out of the East, I'm gonna have to go with the Toronto Raptors because I truly can say I didn't believe that they had a chance to be a strong playoff contender because it looked like they were going towards a rebuild. Siakam was hurt to start the season. Their second best player, they lost Kyle Lowry and finally went all in on Fred Fleet being the leader in the backcourt. And I think they're currently on the 8-game win streak, up to the 6th seed, so they're not in the play-in. Now they might have lucked into the fact that the Nets and Sixers have kind of been playing with their hands tied behind their back all season for all the crazy reasons they have. But Nick Nurse is a guy I didn't know how good of a coach he was, but I think he's proven to us that he's a good coach.
One of the very best.
I'm interested to see where Toronto goes from here because they're only young and getting better.
Yeah. For me, I gotta fess up here from a bad preseason prediction. I gotta take the Chicago Bulls as the biggest surprise in the Eastern Conference. I apologize to DeMar DeRozan. You are unbelievable and spectacular as a basketball player. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. You didn't deserve it because what he's done this year has been absolutely unbelievable. This, I think, arguably the best version of DeMar DeRozan we've ever seen. He's been a net negative on most of his teams all year. He's got one of the biggest plus and minuses in the NBA this year. He's even improving the defensive end. He's shown the ability to shoot the ball better. And he's been the best Bull this year, in my opinion, over Zach LaVine, obviously Vucevic, Lonzo Caruso, those guys. But DeMar DeRozan stepping up and being one of the top 5 MVP candidates, I think has turned Chicago from playing Tiles team to true Eastern Conference contender.
Yeah, so the biggest surprise for me in the East was probably Miami Heat currently, being the number 1 seed. Just recently they added Kyle Lowry and Victor Oladipo, so I was super excited to see how they, fit with that team. A team full of shooters, it seems like, and it really has worked for them. Bam obviously has been a good part for them. Tyler Hero, especially off the bench, has been a great scorer for them. So, the fact that they become a number 1 seed and that the Bucks, like I predicted, is really surprising. So we'll see how they are after All-Star Weekend.
For sure. I think we can all give a shout out to Cleveland as obviously the biggest surprise team in the Eastern Conference. They're the 2 seed. They're 1 game out of being the top seed in the conference. They're just rolling right now.
Yeah.
But I say your biggest disappointment in the East.
There's a lot of them. But I think none are bigger, in my opinion, than the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Because they were in the conference finals last year, and they're kind of in blow it up mode. It's how they really played it most of the time. The moves they made in season, got rid of Cam Reddish, stayed packed at the trade deadline. Trae Young's there, but I think he's kind of in the same situation Luka is in the West. They're tied together. I kind of think they're tied in the same situation right now. Great players, but the team around them is just not there. I don't know. I think they have a logjam in the front court with Clint Capella and John Collins that they're trying to figure out how to use. And everything worked so well in the playoffs. I'm very shocked to see how bad it's been. Injuries have played a part. Bogdanovich refuses to stay healthy. I also think Kevin Hurt has been hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think DeAndre Hunter refuses to stay healthy.
I remember what missed a couple months with that.
So I mean, as good as they were as big of a surprise as they were last year, they haven't been what the Suns are this year. They haven't backed it up this year. It looks like it was a fluky run right now.
Yeah, and then I think it's definitely a big one. I'm going to go with, honestly, the Charlotte Hornets.
I wanted to know.
I'm saying I'm a little disappointed the season the Charlotte Hornets have had, especially with LaMelo Ball being an All-Star. We were talking about Miles Bridges being the most improved caliber player. You would think this team would be better than 29-28 in the ninth seed in the East. Now the East is a bloodbath, so we gotta take account for that. The East is really, really difficult to deal with. But I think we've seen over the last couple of weeks, the Hornets have lost some winnable games. They've blown some leads. They've shown the inability. They're a young team, so they've shown some difficulties closing in the fourth quarters of these games. But I expected a bigger jump from Charlotte, who were borderline playoff team last year, and they seem to be like in the same boat again this year.
And I definitely wanted to pick them.
Yeah.
But
Atlanta would have been my pick, so we just ended up switching spots.
Yeah, so my biggest disappointment from the East would be the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
Obviously, they never, top elite, but last year they were the 5th seed, got knocked out the first round, I believe, to Atlanta,
They were
right?
4th seed, I think. Didn't they have home
yeah,
court?
they were the 4-5.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a pretty good record. They're really the 12th seed right now, 25-31. That's crazy, but a team with Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, R.J. Barrett, Evan Fournier,
Gordon Kemba
Obi
Walker.
Toppin. Yeah, even Kemba Walker. That's enough talent to even be playoff contenders, but they're way below, even under Hawks and Wizards. So that's
I think the Knicks are the biggest product of regression that we've seen
Yeah.
from 1 year to the next. Like Julius Randle was 40% for 3 hitting step backs, and now he can barely hit 30. Like it's been one of the most like, wow, this is unbelievable. So like, no, this is more like it. This is what we thought y'all looked like last year.
Yeah.
That's why I wouldn't actually mark them as a disappointment to me. I thought they would, the way
This is
the
what you
East was
thought they
looking, the way the East was looking, I thought that they'd have to take a step back because I thought the Cavs and Bulls would both be good
Yeah.
this year. So
Yeah.
the East is good. So last year they won it because they were good because the East was a little bit weaker. So
I'll also throw in the Boston Celtics. Like
Mm.
they still have enough talent. They shouldn't be sitting here at
They
7.
won a little run here.
They definitely gone on a run. They've
9-1.
picked it up. Like they're 9-1 in their last 10 and won 7 in a row. So they've had to do all that to get to 7 games over 500. Why were y'all there in the first place? It just seems very peculiar to me. They had a slow start, new coach, all that kind of stuff, and just the East being better. I think has probably been the biggest thing for these teams that have progressed in the next year.
I'll even say disappointment wise, I think the Bucks have been a little
They're
disappointing.
championship coasted.
So we can say that, but
Mhm.
like I've been telling Moody, it's weird that now they're playing in the best division and
Yeah.
not just running away with 60 wins.
Yeah, the
Like-
Bulls and the Cavs, those have been fights. Those have
Yeah.
been fights, definitely.
So yeah, that's it for the East. So how do we feel about the Eastern Conference rank? How would you rank the 3 most likely teams to come out of the East?
All right, for me, I'll go ahead and go first. Obviously, Milwaukee's the top of my list. I trust teams that have won before. Giannis is the best player in the league. That's the way he's playing right now. I take Milwaukee with a gap over the next best team. Number 2, I'll say Brooklyn, because KD, he's shown the ability to do it before, and he's shown that when he comes off of injuries, he doesn't really lose a step or lose rhythm or anything like that. So I expect him to come back and look like KD. With Ben Simmons and the rest of those guys, Kyrie Irving part-time, I still think at the beginning of the year, they looked like they were still going to be the runaway best team in the East Championship contenders. I expect that to be not much different this year, even though we've never seen a team go on a losing streak like this and win the title. But injuries and stuff like that we'll see. We'll see how they look. We don't really know what the Nets are right now, but Kevin Durant is trustworthy enough to make them the number 2 team. And at number 3, I'm going to say Philly. We haven't seen Philly in the conference finals since 2001, but the fact that Joel Embiid looks like he's geared up for a run, and I think the reason why I put them 3rd because I think talented-wise they could be 2 or 1, but just the lack of trustworthiness in James Harden and Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers just makes me a little bit skeptical about them. Ben Simmons wasn't the only problem they had. Ben Simmons wasn't the only reason they didn't get out there against the Hawks. There were a lot of other issues as well. James and Joel, this is your shot. They got to prove it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have 2 to 3. So I'm gonna go with, of course, Milwaukee because they've been there, done that. They're at the top of the throne right now. They look like they're coasting. As disappointing of a season they had, they're still won 13 games over 500, and they're coasting. They look like they're coasting, but the injuries have been kind of a problem for them.
There is
So
no Brook Lopez. We
so-
don't look like he's coming back. So
we'll see about that. 2, I'm gonna go with the Nets because Kevin Durant was 1 inch away from knocking out the Bucks last year. So I mean, and that was with nobody. So if they could just get Kyrie, I'm banking on Kyrie being able to play full time by the playoffs. I think that problem will fix itself, and we'll really just see how Ben Simmons is integrating him. And
didn't Giannis call him an effing baby?
that was Joel
Isn't it?
And at 3, I'm actually going to go with Miami, slightly over the 76ers because I believe in Eric Spoelstra
And Jimmy.
Jimmy Butler. They were in the all 3 of the teams I've listed have players who have played in finals.
Yeah.
While nobody on the Sixers outside of James Harden has played in the finals, and nobody outside of James Harden, the coach, have been a part of the conference finals.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. They're very much lacking big time playoff success.
but I think the Sixers are closer to the Heat
Then they are to
than
the
the
Bucks.
Than the Nets are closer to the Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
agree with that.
so-
I think it's Bucks, Gap, and then those next tier 2 teams.
Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, so just thinking about these teams being healthy, my number 1 would be Bucks, obviously, by a long shot. They're the clear contenders right now.
Mhm.
But my number 2 would actually be Nets. Obviously, like both of you said, they just lost by one toenail.
Mhm.
So obviously that's a main contender. So I think this year a full healthy team we see a really close game. Hopefully Game 7, but we'll see. It never wants to go like that. And for my third one, it would be really close, but I would choose Philly just because the addition of James Harden onto there. So him and Joel Embiid, that'd be a lethal duo. So we'll see how that is. But my close one would actually be Bulls. A healthy Bulls team. I don't think Lonzo is coming back this season.
No, he'll be back.
He might.
He had a bone bruise, so those can take a long time to get back. But they said that they expect him and Caruso back at some point.
Okay, well, yeah, him and Caruso obviously amazing guards for the team. DeRozan has been playing a hell of a season, so obviously him and Levine and including Vucevic, that's starting 5 right there. That's very lethal.
It's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, they could definitely give Philly a run for their money if they play great, and obviously we'll see how they play against one of these other teams like Bucks or Nets. So we'll see that.
It's gonna be. I think this is gonna be a great Eastern Conference playoffs.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
awesome.
it's gonna be.
Are there any matchups outside of Nets versus Sixers that you would want, and Nets versus Bucks? Because I think those are the clear matches that you'd love to get. Is there any other matchup that you'd want to see in this playoffs?
Yeah, Heat versus Philly. You
Okay.
didn't
Jimmy
say that,
Butler
but-
versus.
Yeah, I would want to see that just because Jimmy Butler is past for Philly, but
Okay.
Obviously, Sixers Nets. I think is when we
That'd
want.
be a good
I think
one.
it's when we want to see really bad. But I think the matchup that's the first round right now, the 2 versus 7, Cleveland versus Boston. That looks interesting because I think Boston might be the favorite going into that series just off of people just expecting Boston to, especially the way they played the second half of the year and Cleveland being young. I think people would be more inclined to pick Boston, but Cleveland might. That would be Cleveland's chance to really show if they're a new team, if they're really past the LBJ era. So I'll say right now, Cleveland and Boston.
I would be excited to see the Hornets team go against Miami as well.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty cool.
if the Hornets can get their stuff together, although Hayward suffered that really bad injury, we'll
Is
see
he?
if he comes back. Yeah, he hurt his ankle pretty bad, so we'll see how he looks on the way back.
I would be interested to see the Bucks and the Cavs.
Yeah, Bucks and Cavs 2 rounds.
Because actually the Cavs have been giving the Bucks problems all year long because they match up really well with
Spanked
their
them last time they
size.
saw him.
So that's a good matchup, and I think Bulls versus Nets would be a good one.
Bulls versus Nets.
That'd probably be the highest scoring series of the playoffs.
Yeah.
That'd be
Bulls versus Nets.
That'd be a good series. But there's a lot of storylines in this.
What
Yeah,
about
no,
Bulls
Bulls.
versus Raptors?
Bulls versus
DeRozan versus the Six.
I mean, that's actually the
That'd be
matchup right now.
That's matchup right now.
I mean, all the plays. There's so many links here. Like you've got
The
Jimmy
East is so
Butler.
deep.
You've got
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler,
it really
who's got a
is.
link to the Sixers, and you've got the Nets, who have Kyrie Irving, who's linked to the Celtics, linked to the
Cavs.
Cavs. You've got the Raptors, who are linked, like you said, to the Bulls. There's a lot. There's a
Cavs
lot of.
versus Nets.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
like
Jared Allen.
storylines and narratives that could. Yep, Cavs versus Nets. I didn't say
Yeah.
that one.
Harrison, Jared Allen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of storylines in this East because of the trades and the player movement that has occurred here, but I think that's good enough to talk about the East,
Yeah.
which it looks really interesting. Let's go on to the West.
Okay.
And I mean, right now, we got the Suns who are running away,
Yeah.
who have created separation from Golden State, who were right on their tails before they played a couple games against each other. So, surprises and disappointments.
All right. If we're gonna go with surprises, I don't want to pick Memphis because I thought Memphis and Golden State would be good, so I'm not really surprised that those teams are up there. But I'll say Dallas. I'm the most surprised that they've managed to scrape the 5, considering Tim Hardaway Jr. was out for the season. They just traded away Porzingis, who's been hurt a lot. But they've called Jason Kidd, who we kind of laughed at and kind of disrespected as a coach. People didn't really like Jason Kidd because of some of his own issues and stuff like that. But he turned out into a top 5 defensive team in the NBA. I don't think any of us would have thought that going in, especially with their collection of talent. Like their collection of talent doesn't really scream
Their best players
top
aren't
5
defender?
defense. Exactly. Porzingis ain't no defender, so none of their roster scream being a top 5 defense. But off of scheme and system alone, they made it happen. And Luka has shown some more growth, I think, in terms of an individual leader and as a player to be able to uplift them instead of just being so good that they can scrape 500. Now they're good enough that they can win 50+ games.
For surprises, I think I can't go any other way. Dallas being good is
Yeah.
10 games over 500. I think that's really surprising. But you want to give credit to Jason Kidd. I mean, I'll give him a little bit of flowers for turning their defense around. But Luka Doncic is single-handedly carrying his team night in, night out. And they're live and die by Luka, so that's the show they put on. But I also give my second nod to Denver. Because
no just managed to stick around.
they're live and die by Jokic, and their second best player I think playing right now is Aaron Gordon. He has on and off nights every other night, every game. It seems like you never know what you're gonna get from him. So I think those teams alone are being carried by 2 top 5 players, and they're not really great teams, but they have a great player. And in basketball, you can carry yourself through the regular season with a great top 5.
Yeah, my obviously team that I give a nod to would be Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're in the number 7, I think, right now. But that they came a long way from not even being in the play-in tournament last year. So obviously, their pieces, Cat, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Pat Beverly. Yeah, they have talent. It's not the most elite talent, but it's talent. Especially, it's still developing. Like D'Angelo Russell, especially, ice in his veins for sure. At moments, not all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a team. Another team, obviously Dallas as well. Who would have thought? Obviously Luka's carrying that team, but they're trying to build pieces around him, getting rid of Porzingis. We don't know what is happening there, but. We'll see where that goes, but where they are now is super exciting.
And we all said Dallas, but I will say we all forgot to mention Jalen Brunson. Actually, he has
Brunson, career season, he's been outstanding. Yeah, he's gonna get paid.
Yeah, it's actually him and Darrell Finney-Smith. They're
Finney-Smith.
They're the defensive players that are helped turn around that defense. Any other surprises? Because I actually picked the Timberwolves to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna pat myself on the back for that one.
I'll give New Orleans credit. I'll give New Orleans credit here because they were 1-12, and Zion still ain't showing up. Don't look, he gonna show up. And they've scrapped and they've fought and they've clawed, and now they're 10, and they're in the play-in for the first time. So give New Orleans a lot of credit for bouncing back from some horrible adversity and really giving that city and team a reason to hope that they can actually kind of turn this around. I think they've been coached up really well, and I think Brandon Ingram has shown that he can really, really carry a team to some victories here. If they can add the best player on their team, look, we might have to look out for New Orleans.
And I would be underselling how good the Clippers have been this year because they actually lost Paul George and they're still kind of in the mix of things here. I don't know how they do it because I think the best player on their team is Kennard.
I'd say Marcus Morris, but Reggie Jackson.
That doesn't sound like a.
We've seen Reggie carry his team to what they've seen
That doesn't
before.
sound like a playoff team.
No, it doesn't.
Now Zubac actually had a great season.
I think it also screams to how much the West has fallen off. Like outside of Golden State and Phoenix, the West really isn't very good.
That's a good segue to the better topic. Which one of these underperforming teams in the West?
Stop now. There's one team. There's one team, and it's the Los Angeles Lakers. That's by far the most disappointing team in the NBA, possibly in NBA history. From what we've seen from these guys, they suck. They're terrible. They're awful. You would think a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, as Isaiah said, Jokic and Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic all being top 5 regular season players, just carrying their rosters. And some reason LeBron James and Anthony Davis could be out there, they still suck. It doesn't really make a difference what they do out there. Frank Vogel is on thin ice. He keeps getting weird 1-year extensions of like, yeah, we kind of believe in you, but not really. And I think that's causes him to lose confidence as a coach. Obviously, we have to talk about the disastrous Russell Westbrook trade. It has not worked out well at all in the slightest. He looks like he's no longer even worth being called a star. He's moved into a decent role player, but
role player.
No, because he hasn't accepted the fact that he is one yet. So he's slowly but surely fallen into what Carmelo Anthony was 3 years
No,
ago.
what you're saying, the name you're looking for is Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson, you can say Allen Iverson too, but he's clearly lost 2 or 3 steps.
And he doesn't, and he won't,
he doesn't seem like he knows that he's done that yet. He's talked about how he's getting back tightness from sitting on the bench too much. Whatever you want to call it, man, it's been an absolute dumpster fire from top to bottom, front office to the 15th player on the bench. The Lakers are by far the most disappointing team in the Western Conference.
You're gonna go with the Lakers. I'm gonna go to another team because the Lakers are what they are right now.
Then
There's no reason to throw more dirt on their names. They'll be okay. But I'm actually going to point out that the Utah Jazz have finally suffered some injury problems for the first time in a few years, and it's showing.
Yeah.
They were consistently up there with the Suns running away with the West last year.
They went 2-11 in the month of I think January without
Lost-
Rudy Gobert.
No Rudy Gobert, and their defense fall apart because they have no other defensive players on their team that are good defenders. Mitchell was out for a little bit. Bogdanovich has actually been the most solid.
Yeah,
effective
Ingles tore
player.
his ACL. As much as
Ingles
he's
is out
been
more.
Mike Conley's been there.
Jordan
In
Clarkson.
and out the lineup. I don't know where this team is going. They have Donovan Mitchell, who was a spark plug, scorer, top 15 player easily.
I think he's Devin Booker without Chris Paul. That's
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell is.
They're going to need to get Rudy Gobert healthy, and then we saw last year in the playoffs. In the playoffs, their best player is probably Rudy Gobert, and in the playoffs, you can play him off the court. So they're probably going to have to blow this up a lot sooner than people realize. This might be you might want to get ahead of things before you end up like Portland.
Who's more valuable? Donovan or Rudy?
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan. So you get rid of Donovan and try to build around Rudy.
Why did you get around rid of Donovan?
You said I was saying it's who's more valuable as an asset? As who's can get
To
you
keep
more assets
Donovan
back? Yeah,
Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell
To get more assets
to
back?
get more assets back.
Jordan
Clarkson.
Clarkson
Rudy
would
Gobert
be.
probably.
I think Rudy Gobert too. And
I think
they
Jordan Clarkson would be a good trade too.
Yeah.
we're talking about the most.
I think Jordan Clarkson fulfilled his role. Now he's taken a step back. He's not the elite off spark plug that he's been off the bench, but yeah,
I think they traded for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Show how they kind of feel about Jordan Clarkson right now.
yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have to play the Mavs or the Nuggets in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost to one of those teams with lesser talent.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick the Jazz for my underperformer.
For mine, I'm gonna have to agree with Moody. It would be the Lakers.
It's too easy.
Who would have known? Yeah, dumpster fire. Obviously, it's a lot of unhealthiness this season too. But who would have thought at the beginning of the season they thought they dodged the Dennis Schroeder bullet, only to get hit with the Russell Westbrook rocket. So, that's obviously it's caused bad chemistry with them. So, who would have thought they'd be the 9th seed right now, contending for the play-in tournament?
I mean, that's what they were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, here's LeBron and AD have played 27 of the last 115 games together. The team's built around those two guys. If they aren't playing together, it's not going to be a good team. And they quit. It looks like they quit on the team.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, they got Golden State tonight, primetime ABC, clear your schedules to watch that massacre.
Okay, so before we start talking about contenders, so looking at this Western play-in, which is pathetic at the bottom.
yep.
Any bold predictions for the play-in? Because I did pick the Kings to be a potential play-in
Wow.
team.
Did you?
So I
They're 3
believe
games back with 20-something.
after making the Sabonis trade, I wouldn't be shocked if the Kings were the team that got the last play-in spot.
I don't see Trailblazers making it.
Oh, yeah.
Nah, Blazers are done. Spurs are just the Spurs. Although they had a
Yeah.
great win against Atlanta last night.
The only team
Yeah.
I could see go up, maybe Pelicans.
If Zion doesn't come back,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you about the Kings getting that last play-in spot, which I would be totally fine with. But it's
Okay,
It's
so
a bonus now, so we'll see.
top 3 teams in the West.
all right. I think it's easy to get Phoenix and Golden State out of the way.
Yeah.
Golden State, obviously, Splash Brothers. They have the championship experience. They aren't even completely healthy with Draymond dealing with his stuff, but we know what Steph can do. We know what that team, what those players, that core is capable of when they're playing in big time playoff games. And obviously Phoenix, they were Western Conference champions last year. They're running it back up this year. My 3rd team would be Denver as far as contenders to make the NBA Finals, because obviously I think Jokic is probably the best player in the West right now, considering with LeBron and AD just being the disaster that they've been so far. Jokic is playing like the best player in the conference, and we've been told that Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are going to come back before the season's over. If
So
they have
the word they used was
not too distant
not
future.
soon.
So if they're going to get one All-Star caliber player, one high-end role future All-Star caliber player back healthy and in the playoffs with the way Jokic is playing at the best basketball of his career, and they've developed some good depth around them.
Gordon and
Yeah, I think.
still got Barton, who's a big wing
Yeah,
defender.
I think the Denver Nuggets would be the sneaky third team in the Western Conference that could make a push for the NBA Finals if they could get healthy at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, Moody said it perfectly. Those would be the three teams I picked because, and I think we all know Phoenix and the Warriors. They're the most championship experienced teams. Phoenix has deep playoff run experience, not championship experience yet, but they were as close to winning a championship as you could be without getting one. The reason I'm going to go with the Nuggets over the Grizzlies and the Mavs and the Jazz is basically the reason Moody said. We saw the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals with great Jamal Murray play and mediocre Michael Porter Jr. play. So if they could get
Don't forget who was out there showing them putting in work for them though.
Jeremy Grant, they don't have him no more, but now they have Aaron Gordon to replace him. So I believe I will take their experience over the Grizzlies because, well, they've been there, done that. The Grizzlies will be. No one ever shows up in their first playoff run
Yeah.
and runs it all the way.